Hello everyone, it's me Yeonni. Welcome back to my channel. I was not planning on making another video this week, but some things have been happening over on Twitch with the streamer Hasan Piker, who I'm actually quite a fan of, or have been a fan of, and a certain word that he used to refer to a white person. And there's been a lot of dialogue on the history of this word, why it's good to use, why it's not good to use, and all that. And as a social worker, I wanted to kind of step in and kind of throw in some of my opinions on that word and just the mindset of using words like that in a more like mainstream context, like when someone is streaming and kind of like throwing it out there willy-nilly. So first, some disclaimers before y'all already hit the dislike button or go to the comments if you're a fan of Hasan Piker. Like I said, I also watch his streams. I'm a fan of people who talk a lot about current events, because as a social worker, current events, social injustices, conversations on inequality are things that I'm very passionate about. It is not only my career, but it's my passion, my life work. So there's that. Secondly, like I mentioned, in the title, I don't know if I'm going to say like social justice warrior, but in the context of these kinds of conversations, social justice warrior is always kind of put in like a negative context. And when I tell people I'm a social worker, immediately people like to put certain words in my mouth or assume I'm a certain type of way. But I chose to be a social worker because, like I said, I care about social justice at the end of the day. So whatever you want to refer to me, sure, whatever. I am just a social worker who does not get to kind of sit in a studio all day and talk about these real life social injustices. I have to go out into the field and talk to people, work with people who are, at the end of who are receiving all of these social injustices. So as someone who has firsthand experience dealing with social injustices every day when I go to work, I feel like I have a unique opinion on how to handle talking about, dealing with certain triggering topics and terminology that are brought up. Anyway, and third thing is everything I say in this video is solely my opinion. I do have a little platform here, so I get to say what's on my mind. I am not sending hate, sending any kind of hatred or whatever to whoever may be involved in these conversations, whoever may be in support of Hasan, whoever might be against Hasan, whatever, I don't care. I'm just talking about how I feel about the topic. So there's that. So let's just jump into the video. So let's start with Hasan. Hasan is a Twitch streamer that I've been really following for like the past 3-4 months, not too long, but I've really enjoyed his streams. They're very entertaining. Sometimes I feel like he does kind of push the boundaries a little bit on the things that he says or the way he speaks to people, but once again, that's just a difference of opinion and difference of doing things, and who am I to critique that or comment on that. Yeah, he is someone who has a lot of hot takes. A lot of them I agree with, a lot of them I don't, but I appreciate people who go on these platforms and talk about real life issues. So that's why I watch his streams. Recently, he said a certain word in a disparaging way towards somebody, and he was banned off the platform Twitch for a week. He's currently banned this week, and he's on every other platform, like on YouTube, going on other people's streams, talking about how, and he's on Twitter, he's on his Instagram, talking about how he's not sorry. And this is the hill that he has chosen to stick to. He's had a lot of controversies in the past as well, but this one, I don't really agree with him, which is why I'm here, obviously. So that's a little bit about Hasan. If you're a fan, you obviously know about him a lot more than I do. Look him up if you're curious. And now let's talk about the word that he used. So the terminology that he used, I personally don't want to say it. That's my personal choice. First off, I wanted to read up on the historical context of this word because, just being transparent, I didn't know too much about the word. I just knew it's probably something I don't want to use, because why? There's so many other words to refer to people. Why use this word? So I read some history of the word, which I'm not going to go into in this video, but I will link those specific historical articles in the description box down below so you can educate yourselves. But basically, it's a word that has existed way before the United States of America. The term and the meaning and the context of the word has changed all throughout American history about who it was referring to, what it meant, what kind of nuance it meant to call someone, refer to someone as that word. It's a word with a long history. So all that to say, because it has such a complex history, it makes sense why so many people have so many different opinions on whether we should use the word or not. It's not just like a word like pencil. You know what it means. You know how to use it, how to not use it. This word that we're talking about today has such a long history, like I said, longer than the history of the United States, and has been used in many different contexts. So it's understandable that people are very upset if they only know a few ways of using the word, or why certain people who may be more well versed in the history of this word, who might have educated themselves, might be like, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just sitting here to say, I don't think we should use the word. That's my opinion. And the reason why I don't think we should use the word is not obviously as a simple one, since it's a complex topic, which leads to complex solutions. I personally feel like we shouldn't use it because, I wrote some notes here, progress is what we want, isn't it? As progressives, don't we want our society to progress? But when you throw out a word that clearly is so controversial and keep defending it, using it, antagonizing people who are offended by it rather than trying to educate them, being like, oh no, you're an idiot, oh no, you must be a white nationalist for liking this word, I don't think that leads to progress. And also, when we use a word that clearly leads to such triggered responses from people, why do it? I understand that there's also the argument that we shouldn't be like coddling or being understanding to certain people who have some radical views about society. Let's say like white nationalists, white supremacists, people who use like white nationalist argument points to fight against like Black Lives Matter, fight against people of color and their social justice movements. I don't agree with that either. However, I want to just bring up a story that I experienced when I was at NYU getting my master's degree in social work, where as a person of color, I witnessed many times in classroom settings where white students were ridiculed, not listened to, and humiliated just because they didn't know certain lived experiences that people of color had to deal with. And of course, when it comes to that context, yes, they are extremely privileged. People who have never had to experience racism in their lives are extremely privileged. I grew up experiencing racism all my life. I dealt with racism all the time when I first moved to the States. When I couldn't speak English, I saw my family having to deal with racism as I was growing up. Let me backtrack. In these classroom environments, it was like a little microcosm of society where people of color became frustrated because we felt like a lot of the curriculum were catered to white students who had to be taught about racism, when racism and discrimination and oppression are just the everyday lived experiences of people of color. So, how I feel like I would have handled those environments is not to ridicule, not to humiliate, not to antagonize these students who never experienced these things, but to educate them, to have open conversations, especially if certain people are willing to learn. But, kind of pulling it out of this microcosm of my experience at NYU, when the first thing you do is ridicule, humiliate, antagonize, who's going to want to listen? And if people don't want to listen, they're obviously going to close up their ears. They're not going to be open-minded. And that does not lead to progress. And at least for me, as a social justice warrior, as a social worker, let's just say that, I'm obviously digging at the social justice warrior joke I've gotten all my life being a social worker. I think in society, we want equality. We want justice. We want people to be treated as equals at the end of the day. And I know that's not the society that we live in, but that's what we're trying to strive for, is it not? And this is complex, I understand again, because I am an Asian American and my lived experiences dealing with racism in America is very different from those of people from other groups, like people in the Black community, like Americans in the brown community. It's just so different, but my perspective, which is what this video is about, is antagonizing, humiliating, people who have a different opinion than you is not the way to approach progress. I think Hasan means well in his streams, but maybe sometimes because he's never really, worked out in the field. I know he's a poli-sci major, but like he's educated, obviously. He's educated on these topics. He does a lot of research and reading for his streams, I understand. But it just does not seem very progressive to approach very sensitive matters like racial issues and racially charged terminology in such a haphazard way. Anyway, I wanted to make this video just quickly to say, I think we live in a world where people want simple solutions to very complex circumstances. The world is complex. And a lot of people, especially when it comes to like political ideologies, racial ideologies, you're either for Black Lives Matter or you're not. You're either a left or you're a right. And if you're a moderate, someone who tries to understand that the world is not just black and white, no pun intended, the world is not just black and white, the world is not just left or right, the world is not just right or wrong. If anything, it all falls on this really complex spectrum. And then I know a lot of people will come at me with the mentality of, oh, we don't coddle this radical group of people, and how come they get to call us this, right? They call liberals libtards, they call us snowflakes. All of these like radical conservatives online like to call left-wing people all these words. It's really childish. So if you say it's childish, is it the right thing to go right back at them being so childish? It's like with COVID happened. Okay, let me just go on one more rant here. This whole COVID situation, like people are still dying. And then when I hear people online who are public figures, when I hear people in my life saying good riddance to the people who are unvaccinated, who are dying right now, it's on them, that just breaks my heart. At the end of the day, these are people who I believe are victims of misinformation and who were led astray by people of power, whether in politics or in the medical field, whatever. And they lost their lives. At the end of the day, a human being is dead. People are dead. And I do not think it is right for people to be like good riddance to the people who were unvaccinated and who died. It's that kind of a thing where it's like, there's ideologies, there's political ideologies, there's like racial ideologies. But at the end of the day, as humans, as people, we should have a foundation of morality and humanity. We should not be wishing death on anyone, on any end. And just because one party is calling names and blah, 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 we do the same exact thing? Is that progress? One kid throws a rock at you, you're gonna throw a rock back at him? Is that how we deal with things in society in a progressive, mature way that will push us forward into a better future? I personally don't think so. If so many people are confused, if so many people are triggered and are not happy about this word being used, maybe instead of antagonizing them, maybe instead of humiliating them, we should approach it in more of a educational way. Teach them why it's okay to use, why it's not okay to use. Well, I don't know why suddenly showing compassion, empathy, humility, modesty are considered weak. Why is that suddenly a weak thing to do? I think it is the right thing to do. I think it is the stronger thing to do to show these things, compassion, modesty, humility, when the other side is not showing that. Why stoop to such levels of name calling? I don't understand. Let's not hold a double standard. It makes our movement look weak. Whatever you stand for, if you have a double standard, it makes you look weak. It does not lead to progress. Open-minded, respectful conversations are what lead to progress, to work being done, and leads to actual positive change being made in the lives of people who are genuinely actually suffering right now. And as people who get to have such a huge platform online, like Hasan or H3, and who have the privilege to be able to sustain their lifestyles by, being able to talk on the camera like this, instead of being on the streets, providing services every day for like minimal wage, to be honest. Typical Spider-Man quote, but with great power comes great responsibilities. And if you want to educate, if you want to talk about social justice topics, if you want to talk about politics, if you want to talk about real life issues, you need to approach them in a sensitive manner. This is not frivolous online drama. These topics, these terminologies, these concepts are things that affect people every day. And I see it every day. It's not something to joke about. It's not something to meme about. It's a complex situation. Hope I was able to verbalize that somewhat efficiently through this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the very next video. Bye.